Hi guys, it's Alyssa from Alyssa's Bake Shop, and today I'm going to show you how to decorate some cupcakes inspired by flowers. This is perfect for bridal showers, weddings, baby showers, anything that has a flower theme, or just for fun. I'm going to go ahead and set everything up so that way the decorating process will be really easy. I love having everything set up in advance. I'm using some different tips today, and I'm using only 2 pastry bags because I'm going to be using a coupler, and this is going to allow us to switch out tips really easily. First, I have a closed star tip. This is by Ateco number 828. And then I'm going to be using a petal tip. This is by Ateco 104. And you can see that I have 2 variations here. I'm using the one on the left, and you can use whatever variation that you have. Just know that the larger the opening, the thicker the flower is going to be. Then I have the Wilton 233 or the grass tip, and then finally I'm using just a generic tip number 61. I will put links below for where you can get the brand name tips, but it's just a curved tip that's going to allow us to make some cool looking petals. I'm going to prepare the piping bag with the coupler. I'm just going to cut straight across and making sure that the opening is large enough that I'm going to stick in that first piece and then set aside. I already cut the bag with our closed star tip. This tip is too large to use with a coupler, so it's going to be its own bag. To prepare the tip with the coupler, you're just going to place it on top and then take the second piece and screw it on. It's really easy and it comes in handy. So for today, I'm using American buttercream. You can use Swiss meringue or Italian meringue, whichever buttercream that you prefer. I went with American buttercream because it crusts very quickly and it's just sturdier in my opinion, so it will last longer in heat. Obviously, everything melts outside, but I feel American buttercream will give you the best advantage, especially if it's for an outdoor party or wedding or bridal shower. The first flower is a rose variation, also slightly inspired by a peony. Now, some of these flowers I took a little bit of creative freedom, and they're not all modeled after one specific flower. If you are going after specific flowers, I will have some of those as examples too. I made a little base for our petals to start, and I just want to show you guys to keep the taper side pointing up. This is going to give us more delicate flowers that are slightly more ruffled, and I find that it just makes it look a little bit more realistic. Now to make the center, I'm just doing 3 petals over each other, and I'm angling it inward so that they are very tight, so that the center just looks like it is just really not yet opened. When it comes to the rest of the petals, I'm just sort of doing it horizontal, so it's just parallel to the cupcake. I'm not really angling the tip in or out, and you're going to find that the way that you angle really does change the shape of the flower. So there's tons of possibilities that you can do just based on how you hold the actual piping tip. I really love delicate flowers that are very full and have lots of petals. So to achieve that full but still delicate look, I looked at peonies and I looked at rose variations, and there's just so much out there. So this was inspired by a mixture. What I'm doing is I'm keeping the petals pretty much the same exact length. I'm not making any too short or too long because I want it to still look pretty even. And when I get to that last row of petals on the outside, I'm angling it outward so that way it looks like it's starting to open. I really love how these turned out because it was ruffly and there are tons of petals, but it just still has a nice, very delicate kind of rustic finish. Our next flower is a rose, and for some reason that makes me think of Beauty and the Beast. I don't know why, considering it's not a red rose, but I'm going to be using the same exact tip, number 104, with the tapered end up, and I created a small base of frosting, and then I'm going to also make our bud in the center, which I'm not wrapping them around quite the same as I did for the last one. I'm making more of a triangle shape. Then I'm going to start layering on each petal. Once I've made a few petals that go around that center of the rose, I'm going to change the shape. So this is what is going to make it look a little more rose-like. I'm taking the tip and I'm basically touching the cupcake, pulling it up, and then bringing it down. So it's almost like a rainbow, and this just gives it a more curved rose-like look. So for the rose, I'm actually physically pushing out more buttercream, which is why the petals look a lot thicker than the last cupcake does. Now you have control over this, so you can just have a slightly less firm hand and make the petals a little bit more delicate, but I wanted this to be a little bit thicker than the other one, just to really show more of a sort of curved look that I associate with rose petals. And I just continued the same shape all the way to the edge, and this is the final look. Our third flower is a peony that is more on the closed side, so it's not quite as open as that first cupcake variation that I showed you. So I'm creating a base here. I'm still using our number 104 tip with the taper side pointed up, but this time when we start to create our center, we want to overlap the petals. So we don't want them to be pointing up. We want them to be laying more flat to the cupcake, and we want to just keep overlapping over and over. And this is going to create that closed effect as opposed to a flower that is more in bloom. Another way to explain the motion is if you look at the last two, I did an upwards motion, but for this one, we're doing a downwards motion, and this is really making our layers more flat against the cupcake as opposed to curving out or curving up. I'm continuing to do the same overlapping, but you can see that the outside is just starting to grow bigger and bigger. But this is actually a really cool effect because it makes the inside look a lot more layered and just more hidden, like an actual peony. Here's what the final cupcake looks like, and to compare the two, on the left I have the rose and then on the right is the peony. At first glance I feel like they do look very similar, but when you look at them closer you can see how the petals are in different directions, which gives them their unique shape. This next flower is somewhat inspired by the calendula flower, those orange and yellow flowers that are very layered. I hope that I pronounced that right, but I really wanted to just try to get some nice layers that are going vertically instead of the horizontal motion that we used for the past three flowers. I'm taking the 104 tip with the tapered side up, and I'm just going to start in the center, make a heart shape, and pull it back down. You can see that my cupcake already looks like it has some frosting on it. That's because I had tried this before and it was too thick and I didn't like how that looked. So one tip that I have is to really make sure that you are pushing the buttercream into the cake. And what I mean by that is you just are really trying to get it to stick flat onto the cupcake. It makes the second layer look less bulky and more natural. For the second layer, we're going to do the same exact motion. You want to start from the center, pull the buttercream up, make a heart, and pull it back down to the center. I'm just going to go all the way around, and I'm not going to make the petals as long so that we can still see those first petals. I'm going to use the grass tip for our center, and I'm just going to push, and I'm not going to pull up the buttercream too high because that will give us more spiky and grass-like looks. So I'm just keeping it low and kind of pushing it down into the cupcake. That will just give us this nice little cute center. This next flower we're going to kind of take in a different direction. This is inspired by a chrysanthemum, and I'm going to be using that number 61 curved tip. Now the beginning footage did not look good, it was very blurry, so I cut to this part. What you're going to do is you're just going to push the icing starting around the outside of the cupcake, and you're just going to pull it straight up. And this is one of the really nice things about American buttercream is just how well it holds its shape. So you can see that even though it doesn't really have any support from the cake itself, those little petals are just standing straight on their own. And as American buttercream dries down, it's only going to get harder because American buttercream forms a crust. To finish off this design, we're just going to keep on adding those petals, and we're going to just do that until we don't see any more of the cupcake. Something I do want to add for all of these flowers is that I am turning the cupcake in my hand as I work, and I find that to be the easiest way. You can definitely put this on the table and pipe it, but I will say that actually picking up the cupcake does give you more control. And while this design may be fairly simple, it does take a lot of petals in order to cover the whole cupcake. But you're just going to want to keep putting more and more, and I'm actually starting to make the petals a little bit smaller. That way we just kind of have this more natural center to the flower. This next flower is inspired by Zinnia, which I really love, and honestly, I think I've said that about every single flower because I just love flowers. I went back to the 104 tip with the tapered side up. I'm going to start on the outside edge of the cupcake, and I'm making this kind of U shape again, but I'm keeping the petals small and just very squished together because I just want them to be super tight together. So I'm just going to do that all the way around. Once you get to the second layer, we're going to do the same thing, but we're just going to make the petals smaller so that way we can still see that first layer. And I am actually going to add in a third layer as well, so I'm trying to keep this as flat to the cupcake as possible. I don't want the petals to be too bulky, so I'm really pushing the icing down as I pipe it out. I'm making the petals really small, so you can see it's almost barely that U shape because I'm just trying to fit them all in there. I want to make sure that I can go all the way around like how I did the other layers, so it still has that nice natural but uniform kind of look. I switched out the tip for the grass tip, and I'm just going to use this to pipe in the center so we have this really nice center like you would see in a zinnia. I really think that zinnias are super pretty and I love their colors, and because these cupcakes are all white, I feel like some of what they are kind of gets lost in the translation, but I still really like the all white look. For our seventh flower, I decided to go with the hydrangea, and I love hydrangeas, and I know that I just say I love to every flower, but I think these are the easiest and the most fun to make. So I'm using that closed star tip in that other piping bag that we made, and I'm just going to go ahead and pipe these dollops right onto the cupcake, and I'm going to try to fit as many as I can. So for this, I think I fit about, let's see, 3, 6, 7, about 7 stars. This one is really easy to make, and it just is, oh, I fit 8 actually. I fit 8, but this one is just so much fun. For our final flower today, this is also inspired by a zinnia, maybe a zinnia variation. I'm using the 104 tip, but with the tapered side facing down. So this is the first petal where we're going to face it down. There are so many different ways to use the 104 tip, and that's what I wanted to show you guys. So for this one, I am going on the outer edge of the cupcake, and I'm kind of doing this sort of curved U shape, but I'm moving the tip up and down very quickly so that we get a ruffled looking petal. Now, when I go to pause the video right here, it kind of makes me think almost of hibiscus petals. So I'm definitely going to have to experiment with that and see if I can make some hibiscus themed cupcakes. Now we're going to go on to the next inner layer, and I'm just going to do the same exact up and down motion, and then I'm going to do that multiple times and turn the cupcake with my hand. And you want to make sure that you are just doing the motion slightly smaller, that way we can still see that first layer of the petals. I am going to add one more row of petals and the same motion, and then keeping it small, of course, just so we can see all the other layers. I really like how this one turned out. I like how the ruffles are just so different from the other type of ruffles that we did, and by using the same exact 104 tip, but just in a different way. So I switched it out for the grass tip so that we can just complete it by adding this nice little center. Here are all 8 designs side by side. I'm really happy with how the all-white theme turned out. I thought that it was just really a nice thing for bridal and for the wedding season coming up. But of course, you can add any colors that you like. You can even do ombre effects, and you can add multiple colors and different petal colors. That would be really pretty too. You can even add glitter and sprinkles and really just go crazy, right? That's the best part about decorating, is that you can really do whatever you want. So I hope you guys liked this video, and I'll see you in the next one.